Hey everyone, it's Smytepants Chess here. Welcome to my channel if you've not already seen my previous videos, but today we're going to look at a game between Rashid Nezhmetdinov and a player called Efim Korchmar, played in the year 1931 in Odessa. So Nezhmetdinov in this game was playing with the black pieces, so we're going to look at it from the black perspective. Korchmar, I believe, is a Ukrainian player, and he was playing with the white pieces. So he kicked us off with the move d4, Nezhmetdinov played d5, White played knight to f3, Nezhmetdinov played knight to f6, and White played bishop g5. Here Nezhmetdinov played e6, using the queen to defend the knights on f6, so White can't double Black's pawns. And here I've just highlighted loads of green arrows, but the plan is for White here to play e2 to e3, knight b to d2, bishop to d3, castles, queen e2, and then push this e4 pawn up. We'll see how White gets on with this plan later in the video, but in the meantime White got on with the plan of e3. Nezhmetdinov played bishop to e7, so stopping this bishop on g5, just blunting this diagonal, and White played bishop to d3, just developing rapidly. Black castled, knight bd2 was played, and Nezhmetdinov hit out with the move c5. Nezhmetdinov actually said in his book that Black must keep in mind active counterplay in the centre to hinder White in organising their attack. So if Black just sits back here and does absolutely nothing, then White's going to have free reign over the position. So Nezhmetdinov didn't allow this. White can take this pawn on c5 if they wish, but after d takes c5, Black should now play a5. This stops White from playing b4 to support this pawn, and after castles, Black can play knight b to d7, and they're going to take that pawn off with the knight rather than the bishop. The bishop is nicely placed for Black, just stopping this bishop on g5 from pinning the queen. Let's go back to the game after c5 then. Korchmar actually played c3 to support the d4 pawn, and Nezhmetdinov played b6. And we see that now White has a really nice setup, and actually Korchmar goes in for the attack straight away. Knight to e5, dropping one of their knights in the centre. The point is, after Nezhmetdinov played bishop to b7, White plays the move f4, and now they've got two pawns supporting this knight, and it's on a very nice outpost. It can be difficult for Black to shift this without, of course, capturing it. So Nezhmetdinov does indeed play knight b to d7, trying to counteract this knight on e5. And here Nezhmetdinov actually believes that White has a very rich attacking position if they follow through with the correct plan. Nezhmetdinov believes the correct plan here is to castle, and after knight to e4, let's say, there can be bishop takes e7, queen takes e7, knight takes d7, queen takes, and knight to f3, f6. And we're into a very equal game. However, Nezhmetdinov felt that White's next move was a bit of a mistake, and he believes White is misassessing this position. He played queen to f3. The point is that White now wants to castle queenside. However, it certainly works in Black's favour rather than White's, as you'll see in the game. So now Nezhmetdinov took this knight on e5. Now, I think it was Nakamura who actually said that you should never take these knights. I can't remember the exact position. But here it seems actually quite a good move. Knight takes e5 was played. I think the point is that White can now actually play d takes e5 if they wish, and after knight to d7, there's queen h3, attacking h7. If g6, White could play bishop h6, attacking the rook. And if rook to e8, White can play knight to f3. After a5 and castles, White's got a much better position and stands better here. So maybe this is the reason why in this position Black shouldn't take this knight off on e5. I think the point that one of the grandmasters made is that the White knight on e5 actually doesn't do anything in this position. So it sits very nicely, but it's not actually pointing at anything. So it's going to have to be moved sooner or later anyway. But anyway, Nezhmetdinov took this knight off, and White recaptured with the f-pawn. F takes e5, now attacking the knight on f6. So the knight has to move, and Nezhmetdinov plonks it in to e4. And now the bishop on e7 attacks the bishop on g5, and the knight on e4 also attacks the bishop. If knight takes e4 here, Black can recapture with the d-pawn, and if bishop takes e4, bishop takes e4, bishop takes e7, bishop takes f3 can be played. If bishop takes d8, this bishop takes g2, rook g1, and rook takes bishop, rook takes g2, and play f6. And this position is actually considered dead equal. Both sides have the same amount of pawns and material, and it's looking likely that it'd be a draw in this game. So for this reason, white didn't take the knights on e4, instead he played bishop takes e7, and Nezhmetdinov recaptured. Now you may be wondering why white doesn't just take the knight on e4 now. Well, let's say bishop takes e4 here, black can play d takes e4, and if knight takes e4, queen h4 check wins the knight. The knight can't move to g3 or f2 because then the bishop is going to take the queen. If the queen moves to g3 or f2, then queen takes the knight will win a piece. If you just go back to this position, instead of knight takes e4, white could opt for queen e2, but then black has good prospects with rook a c8, and black's got no problems in this position. Following on from this, white also can't play knight takes e4 because then after d takes e4, bishop takes. Queen h4, again this nice check, and black will pick up the bishop on e4 and move later. So after queen takes e7, white actually castled here, castled queenside. And now Nezhmetdinov played a very nice move, I believe. It supports the knight on e4. He played the move f5, and the tactics work in his favour, because if e takes f6, black can just play rook takes f6, attacking the queen. And the point is, if the queen moves to, let's say, h5, after g6, attacking the queen and driving it back to e2, black can play knight to f2 and win an exchange, so forking these two rooks. So the tactics work in the favour of Nezhmetdinov here. He believes now white should play the move king b1. So the point of king b1 is that after rook a c8 from black, it moves off the c-file and just gives this king an extra layer of protection. I think this is what modern day AlphaZero and Leela Chess Zero will probably play as white. But going back to the game, instead white now played rook d f1. And here Nezhmetdinov writes, in pursuit of an imaginary attack, Korchmar withdraw his pieces from the queenside where white himself will soon be attacked. It was necessary to move the king to b1 now, or on the following move. So why does Nezhmetdinov believe this? Well, he actually played rook a c8 now, and the point is this rook on c8 eyes up the king on c1. But white just ignores this threat, he plays rook h g1. Maybe white's now preparing to play moves like g4. But black's attack is really quick, he plays c takes d4, and the c pawn is now pinned, so white is forced to take this pawn, e takes d4. And now Nezhmetdinov played a great aggressive move. I wonder if you can spot it. Maybe I'll give you 10 seconds, I'll pause the video and see if you can find it. Nezhmetdinov now played the unrelenting move, knight takes c3, sacking the knight for 2 pawns. Because now white recaptured, b takes c3 and rook takes c3 is played with check. And white's king is under a lot of strain, and this bishop on d3 will now become a massive target. If white goes king d1 here, black can play queen a3, attacking the bishop twice. King e2 is the only way to support it, but after rook takes d3, queen takes d3 and bishop a6, black's just winning the queen. So going back to the game, white definitely can't play king to d1. So king b1 was played in the game. And now Nezhmetdinov followed in with queen to a3, attacking the bishop once again on d3. There's no other way to defend this bishop apart from the move that was played. So knight to b3 was played to try and block the rook and the queen from connecting. Now black actually has a draw here. They could play rook takes b3, a takes b3, queen takes, and if king a1, it'll just be a perpetual for both sides, and that's a draw. Also in this position, king c1 loses to rook c8 check. After king d2, bishop a6, preparing rook c2 ideas. If rook c1, queen b2, and then rook c2, rook takes, bishop takes, and now queen takes d4. If bishop to d3 takes, and queen e3 to protect the rook. But even so, if queen takes e3, king takes, and bishop c4. The point is black's an exchange down, but now has an extra 4 pawns, and that should be enough to win this endgame. So if rook takes b3, Nezhmetdinov had a win or a draw here, but I don't think he wants the draw. He wants the win. And now he played another move to attack this bishop on d3, bishop to a6, attacking the bishop twice. In the game, rook d1 was played to support the bishop. There were a few other variations that were quite interesting. One commentator in the chess games chat actually said bishop takes f5 may have been a try, but I think black just plays rook takes the queen. If bishop takes e6 with check, they can drop the rook back. If rook takes f7, black can throw in bishop to d3. If king a1, rook takes f7, bishop takes d5, still maintaining the pin on this rook. But black has extra advantage now. They can play bishop c2. If rook f1, take on b3, bishop takes, king h8, and bishop takes f7. But now comes the killer blow. Queen c3 check, king b1, and queen to d3, with a fork against the rook and king, and black's going to win this game. So after bishop a6, another try for white may have been bishop takes a6. Even so, black can take the queen again with rook takes, and if rook takes, queen takes a6, rook c1 and queen to b5. Basically white's got a knight and a rook for the queen, but black has two extra pawns, and it looks as though black's going to win this game as well. They can push the f pawn up and also the a pawn. Black should be absolutely fine in this endgame. So going back to the actual game, rook d1 was played to support the bishop on d3, and Nezhmetdinov now followed up with a genius move. I think it'd be very difficult for a lot of players to spot this move, but the point is that this knight on b3 is incredibly weak, and there's only one way to weaken it further: bishop c4. The point is that obviously the bishop can't take this on c4 because it's pinned against the rook, and now three pieces are attacking this knight on b3. So to defend everything, white plays knight to c1 to try and stop black from taking on a2 as well. The knight defends it, but this doesn't actually work. The tactics work in black's favour. So black's threatening to take on a2 with the queen, but it's defended by the knight. So what do? We remove the defender. Rook takes c1, check. Rook takes c1 is forced, and Nezhmetdinov finished off with queen takes a2, checkmate. The king has got no squares to go to, and that was just a simply magnificent piece of attacking from black. But this is a testament to Nezhmetdinov's ingenuity, and just the fact he noticed that white was very weak when castling queenside. His attack was swift, and he just played some accurate and devastating moves, and this was another genius game of his. But I hope you enjoyed my analysis of this game. If you have any comments, please do share them with me, and also like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.